Defending NASCAR Cup Series champion Ryan Blaney picked up win number 2 on 2024 Pocono. So much strategy in this race as always, and then there's every once in a while cautions. And in this case, there was one caution that we really got to look at because it got a little bit ugly there in this race. But as I said, Ryan Blaney was able to win, led for the majority of stage 3. The way the strategy played out, the way the pit cycles worked, the way that fuel mileage worked in terms of guys just deciding when they wanted to fill up, when they wanted to do a short pit stop in terms of how much fuel they got in the car. Ryan Blaney was able to get control of this race with about 42, 43 to go, and he held on from there. There were a couple of restarts. He had to hold off Bowman and Hamlin, but ultimately, after that, they never really got close. Bowman, he hung on for a couple laps at the beginning of one restart, but other than that, Blaney was able to run away, won this thing by a couple of seconds. We saw a lot of different leaders, a lot of different strategies just based on circumstances. For example, Josh Berry led 15 to 20 laps in this race, and that was due to him cutting a tire, having some sort of issue early in a run, and then when everyone else pitted, he was able to cycle out to the lead. So we saw Josh Berry, Ty Gibbs, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Martin Truex Jr., and maybe a few others that were able to lead laps just due to the way things cycled out, the different pit strategies. It's hard to keep up with at Pocono. Some guys take 2 tires, some take 4, some take 4 and wait an extra couple seconds on fuel. There's so many things to factor in at Pocono. But as for the incidents in this race, and there's this one I really want to focus on. It all started on lap 116 when Todd Gilliland, his brake rotor exploded and ended his 9-race top 20 streak. And this caution allowed everyone to come in and pit for fuel, and they could make it to the end, or if not, they were really close, could maybe use a couple of cautions, which they ended up getting to make it to the end on fuel. And after this, just look at the onboard. Yeah, Corey LaJoie got a great restart, was able to get by Zane Smith, had a run on Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch went to block it, which, you know, you're allowed to do. And then LaJoie just, boop. I mean, what was that, man? I mean, that was really bad. Like, seriously, that was really, really bad. And especially at Pocono, when the top speeds, I know it was a restart, so you're going a bit slower, but you can get over 190 heading into turn 1. So a restart, you're probably going, what, 170 maybe? I don't even know, but you're going really, really fast. And you hook a guy across the grass, and he's going to inevitably slide up into the field and take out some cars. Yeah, I got a problem with that. Just LaJoie, you can't do that. You just straight up can't do that. And NBC was trying to say, you know, oh, there's that yellow line. That's where the banking is. And if you're below that, you're in the banking and it causes a wreck anyways. I don't know, man. He was going pretty straight after he hit Kyle Busch. He wasn't anywhere close to that yellow line. I don't want to sit here and rant and talk about, oh, he did that intentionally, but I'm curious to see what the data says. I'm curious to see what LaJoie says. Kyle Busch did not care to go into specifics. He just said some guys don't lift, and maybe that's ultimately a case of what it is. Maybe LaJoie just didn't lift, and maybe LaJoie just straight up misjudged the corner or misjudged where Kyle Busch was, and that's 100% possible. And if you tell me that, I would accept that. I'd listen to that argument, but it just seemed bad, man. Just from what I saw, it seemed bad. Once again, I could be very wrong. He could have just straight up misjudged the corner, misjudged where Kyle Busch was, but I'm not liking that. I'm not liking what Corey LaJoie did there. That was just ugly. That was bad. It was either a misjudgment or it was something intentional. I really hope it was a misjudgment. But as for the results of this race, as I said, Ryan Blaney picks up his 2nd win of the season. He's the only driver in the Cup Series with 2 wins. Everyone else had 0, 1, or 3. There's your fun fact of the day. Snaps the streak of guys getting their first win of the season on that playoff bubble. Of course, Logano 2 weeks ago, Bowman last week. So Blaney now, if he wasn't in the playoffs before, now he's definitely, and he definitely was in before. But Ryan Blaney leads 44 laps in this race. Didn't have the fastest car early on, but he was able to make his way through the field. I remember that first stint, he went from, I think, 7th or 8th to 3rd. So he had a top 5 speed, it seemed like, early on, but maybe just not as good as Truex at times, not as good as Hamlin sometimes, Elliott. But ultimately, he got in position to win this thing, and when he got out front, he was able to run away. They had winning speed by the end of this race, so they put themselves in position, they played the strategy right, and they ultimately had the speed to get it done today. So Ryan Blaney picks up his 2nd win of the year, picks up some valuable playoff points. And then 2nd place, Denny Hamlin, fighting for that regular season championship with his kind of teammate, the car he owns, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson, and Chase Elliott. And Hamlin picks up the most stage points out of anyone today, finishes 2nd, has 7 wins at Pocono. He was my pick coming into the day, but ends up finishing 2nd place, led some laps today, won a stage, so he picked up a playoff point, which is great. Gained on the playoff, on the regular season points leader, but ultimately finishes 2nd. 3rd place, Alex Bowman, back-to-back top 5s for Bowman. A lot of confidence coming off of that Chicago win. No more stressing about the playoffs, no more thinking about points. It's straight up, how many races can you win? And yes, there's a little bit of points thought. He's right on the border of being in the top 10 in the regular season standings, which gets you some extra bonus points. And this, I'm sure, catapults him into that top 10. A top 5 run. He was top 10 most of the day, qualified in the top 10. This team, they've got multiple weeks in a row now, 2 or 3 weeks in a row where they've qualified inside the top 10. They've run in the top 10 and they've won a race, and now they've run back-to-back top 5s. They're starting to hit their stride a little bit. 4th place, William Byron, top 5, top 10 most of the day. A quiet day from Byron. It feels like it's been that way since his win at Martinsville. He's either so quiet and he does nothing that he sits 14th to 17th, or he just quietly kind of sits from 5th to 10th, and in this case, he finishes 4th. Another quiet day from Byron, not quite as striking in terms of speed as they were in the first quarter of the season, but still really good speed. 5th place, Joey Logano, a double top 5 for Penske. They sweep the weekend at Iowa, and they get the win here at Pocono. So good weekend for Penske. Tyler Reddick finishes 6th. Brad Keselowski 7th. Martin Truex Jr. 8th. Won a stage early in this race, won stage 1. Just was never able to quite figure out the speed after that. Never able to get that winning speed back. Be up at the front. Just struggled in 8th to 10th the majority of the day. And I say struggled, but I mean, they could have had winning speed. Chase Elliott in 9th. This Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin, in my opinion, seemed to have the grasp on this race at one point. Him and Hamlin were on the strategy. They took 4 tires almost every pit stop. They waited on their fuel earlier so they could have shorter pit stops later. And Chase Elliott would have been running up in the top 5 if it wasn't for a speeding penalty. Elliott was going to be on the 2nd row, I think, with Denny Hamlin, so he would have been with Hamlin right there on fresh tires behind Blaney and Bowman, and he sped. Him and Kyle Larson, actually, who were both in the top 5, and that ultimately threw away any chance Chase Elliott had to win. He scored the 2nd most stage points on the day. This is the most speed I've seen out of them since Iowa. So Chase Elliott, they've been in a bit of a slump, but they get a top 10 at least. They should have had at least a top 5, I feel like. So disappointing result for the 9 group. 10th place, Bubba Wallace made a big gain on the playoff cutoff line. We'll look at that in a minute with the struggles of Ross Chastain. Had top 10 speed throughout the weekend, had a bad qualifying lap, had to rally through that. Was able to come back through the field, play the strategy right, and get himself a top 10. So a good top 10, but once again, I still think it's going to take a win. Chris Buescher finishes 11th, 12th, Christopher Bell 13th, Kyle Larson. Same thing I'm going to say about Elliott. Should have been a top 5 day, but ultimately that pit road speeding penalty was just killer for him. And unlike Elliott, I mean, just he was a little bit behind Elliott today, I felt like. So maybe not quite top 5, but 6th or 7th at worst. But Larson should have had a better result, but his pit road speeding penalty killed his day. Him, Ty Gibbs, and Chase Elliott, and someone else. I think it was Suarez, maybe. Jones, 14th, ran in the top 15 all day. Really good at Pocono. I think he had 8 top 10s in the last 12 races heading into this race, at Pocono at least. Ran in the top 10 for a portion. Got some stage points. A really good day considering how bad Legacy has been this year. 15th, Chase Briscoe. Daniel Suarez, 16th. Carson Hocevar, 17th. 18th, Austin Cindric. 19th, Corey LaJoie. Once again, I'm curious to hear his explanation for the wreck, and it didn't help. This is something else I forgot to mention earlier, but something else that made me mad was the team radio. The team getting on the radio and saying, oh, well, he deserved that for that block. Oh, yeah, man, like, he can suck it. They didn't say those exact words, but they basically said, like, oh, yeah, he did that to himself. He deserved that, and you're basically saying, oh, he deserved that, and so did everyone else you just took out. And then Corey LaJoie gets on the radio, and he says, oh, he hooked himself. No, I get you're driving the car, and you don't have a replay right there, but please look at it after the race. He did not hook himself. So I'm just very upset with the 7 team right now. The communications over the radio just made them seem guiltier, in my opinion, of any wrongdoing. Once again, I'm hoping it's a misjudgment. Could have been intentional, theoretically. I hope not. I doubt it was, but I don't know. I just did not think that was pretty. 20th, Josh Berry. 21st, AJ Allmendinger. Justin Haley. 22nd, Austin Dillon. 23rd, 24th, Michael McDowell. 25th was Daniel Hemrick. Hit the wall with just a handful of laps to go. And then everyone else DNF'd. We only had only 24 finishers actually in this race. Hemrick ended up taking it behind the wall. Cody Ware, 26th, was outpacing Kyle Busch at one point in this race. Yeah, that was real words out of my mouth. Ty Gibbs led 21 laps in this race, ultimately blew an engine, which just ruined his day. Had a top 10, maybe even a top 5 going, was on the pole, but just didn't work out for him. So, sucks for him. 28th, John Hunter Nemechek. 29th, Zane Smith. 30th, Ryan Preece. Harrison Burton. 31st, Kyle Busch. Yeah, man. What else can go wrong? I ask that, and then they find a new way. Whether it's blowing an engine at Iowa, whether it's getting dumped on the last lap by Chastain at Sonoma, whether it's getting wrecked by Kyle Larson or wrecking yourself, however you want to put it, at Gateway, or whether it's like this, where you are just having an ultimately horrible day. You barely made it to the grid because there was an oil leak an hour before the race and you had to replace the bottom of the car, and ultimately the car just wasn't good because you had to replace all those parts minutes before the race started, and then you just get completely obliterated by a guy because no one knows why. Seriously, what else can go wrong for this team? I'm genuinely curious, what is going to happen at Indianapolis next week? What different way to have a terrible result can happen next week? I can't wait to figure out. I really can't. Yeah, Kyle Busch is horrific. Season continues. Did not want to elaborate much further on the incident, but we will see what ultimately happens. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was involved in that crash. Todd Gilliland, Preece, Burton, I think were also involved in that crash, but Todd Gilliland was in a single car incident. J.J. Yaley, 35th. Nice. Ross Chastain was on the playoff bubble heading into this race, and he just lost control of his car and wrecked himself in turn 3, and that was the end of his day. No stage points for him. Finishes second to last, only 1 point on the day. Huge blow to his playoff chances. We'll look at that in a minute. Noah Gragson wrecked like 10 laps into this race. Here are your playoff standings. 12 guys are in. Just 5 races remain. Martin Truex Jr., every time there's a repeat winner, he feels a little bit better about himself. He should be essentially locked in, barring a literal miracle from everyone else. Ty Gibbs plus 67 feels decent, but if there's another winner, he might feel a little bit less comfortable. Chris Buescher feels meh. If there's another winner after today, he feels somewhat safe. And Ross Chastain, yeah, he's not sleeping. Plus 27, as we saw today. He was plus 50 or something. That can be erased in a single week. As for Bubba Wallace, pointing his way in is not completely unrealistic anymore, but I still think there will be one new winner below the cut line, so you got to be the guy. So once again, I think at this point it's going to take a win. Do not bank on points. You're going to have to win your way in, if you ask me. Everyone below Bubba Wallace, you for sure have to win. Briscoe, Kyle Busch, Todd Gilliland, Josh Berry, Corey LaJoie, Justin Haley, Zane Smith, whoever else I forgot to mention. But thanks for watching this video. As I said, pretty normal race, but it got a little chaotic there for a minute with the whole LaJoie Busch situation. But yeah, meh race. Nothing really I can think of that was too out of the ordinary other than that LaJoie incident. But let me know what your thoughts were in the comments. Curious to hear what you all have to say. Tomorrow, the Monday after our normal time, we'll do our post-race live stream. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too, and I will see you guys in the next video.